Welcome to Module 6 of the AI Professional Certification Series, AI Certified Leader. In the earlier modules, we focused on how to use AI directly by prompting, building GPTs, creating apps, designing workflows, and building assistants. This session marks an important shift. Now we move from personal AI use to leading AI adoption across teams and organizations. This module is not about hype, and it is not about predicting the future. It is about making practical leadership decisions. Where does AI actually create value? What should a team start with? What risks need to be managed? And how do leaders encourage adoption without creating confusion or chaos? By the end of this lesson, you should have a clear framework for guiding AI adoption in a practical, responsible, and business focused way. AI leadership matters because AI is no longer just a personal productivity tool. It is quickly becoming part of how teams work, communicate, analyze information, and make decisions. Once that happens, AI stops being only a technology topic and becomes a leadership topic. Leaders shape priorities. They decide where time is invested, which tools are adopted, and what standards teams are expected to follow. If leadership is unclear, AI use tends to become fragmented. Some people experiment productively, others avoid it, and others use it without clear guardrails. That inconsistency creates risk and slows adoption. Strong leadership helps teams focus on useful applications instead of random experimentation. It also helps people understand where AI fits, where it does not fit, and how it should be used responsibly. In short, AI leadership is about turning curiosity into coordinated action. Most AI initiatives do not fail because the technology is weak. They stall because the organization does not know what problem it is trying to solve. Teams often begin with excitement, but without a clear use case, ownership, or rollout plan, momentum fades quickly. Another common problem is lack of training. Employees may hear that AI is important, but they are not shown how to use it in their actual work. That leads to uneven adoption. A few people become power users while everyone else stays unsure or disengaged. Organizations also struggle when they pursue vague goals like becoming more AI driven without defining what success looks like. Strong adoption requires practical focus. One use case, one team problem, one pilot, and one measurable result. AI initiatives move forward when leaders connect the technology to real work. It is easy to assume AI adoption is mainly a technical challenge, but in most organizations, the harder questions are actually leadership questions. Who owns the initiative? What problems are worth solving first? How should people be trained? What guardrails are needed? And how will success be measured? Technology matters, but tools alone do not create adoption. People need direction, clarity, and confidence. Teams need to know where AI fits into existing workflows and where human judgment is still required. This is why AI leadership is not just about selecting software, it is about shaping behavior. Leaders influence whether AI becomes a scattered set of experiments or a coordinated capability that improves how work gets done. When leaders treat AI as a business and people issue, adoption becomes far more effective. AI creates business value when it helps people work faster, communicate more clearly, reduce repetitive effort, and make better use of information. In many organizations, the first value does not come from dramatic transformation. It comes from practical improvements in everyday work. For example, AI can accelerate research, draft first versions of content, summarize meetings, improve response times, and help teams work through structured processes more consistently. It can also reduce friction in tasks that are time consuming but not highly strategic, such as formatting, organizing, or synthesizing information. The key is to focus on value that is visible and measurable. If AI helps a team save time, improve consistency, or remove bottlenecks, that is real business value. Leaders should look for places where AI supports productivity and decision making without replacing human ownership or accountability. One of the most helpful ways to think about AI adoption is by looking at common business use cases. In sales, AI can support prospect research, follow up drafting, discovery prep, and CRM notes. In marketing, it can help with content ideas, campaign summaries, and message variations. Operations teams can use AI for process documentation, meeting summaries, and report drafting. HR teams can apply it to job description creation, interview question development, and policy summarization. Leaders themselves can use AI to organize information, prepare presentations, or review strategic options. What these use cases have in common is that they involve structured knowledge work. They are not random or experimental. They are recurring tasks that benefit from speed, consistency, and support. That is where AI often delivers early wins. High value AI opportunities usually share a few clear characteristics. They tend to involve work that is repetitive, time consuming, knowledge heavy, or slowed down by workflow bottlenecks. They also tend to produce structured outputs, which makes them easier for AI to support effectively. A good starting question for leaders is this: where are people spending too much time on work that follows a pattern? That might include preparing reports, summarizing information, writing first drafts, or organizing internal knowledge. The best early AI use cases are not necessarily the most exciting. They are the ones that remove friction from important work. Leaders should look for tasks where AI can save time without creating excessive risk. If a task is common, structured, and currently inefficient, it is often a strong candidate for AI support. Not every task is a good candidate for AI. Good use cases tend to be well defined, repeatable, and low to moderate risk. They include things like summarizing documents, drafting content, generating first pass ideas, supporting research, and improving workflow speed. Bad use cases are often vague, high risk, or dependent on sensitive judgment. For example, using AI to make final hiring decisions, approve legal conclusions, or replace human accountability in sensitive situations is a poor fit without strong oversight. Another bad use case is anything with no clear goal. If a team cannot explain what success looks like, the project is likely to drift. Leaders should be cautious about deploying AI where the output cannot be reviewed, validated, or corrected. The basic rule is simple: use AI to support good decisions, not to avoid making them. AI adoption usually develops in stages. The first stage is curiosity, where people are aware of AI but not yet using it consistently. The next stage is experimentation, where individuals try tools on their own and begin to discover what works. From there, teams move into workflow use, where AI is applied more intentionally to recurring tasks. The next stage is team adoption, where practices begin to spread across a department. Finally, organizations reach strategic integration, where AI becomes part of how the business operates more broadly. This maturity curve is useful because it reminds leaders that adoption is a progression. Most teams are not ready to jump directly into enterprise scale transformation. They need to build confidence, skills, and structure over time. Good leaders meet teams where they are and help them move forward step by step. Leaders play a central role in AI adoption because they shape the environment in which adoption happens. Their job is not to know every technical detail. Their job is to create clarity, direction, and accountability. That begins with setting priorities. Leaders decide which team problems are worth solving and where AI should be tested first. They also create guardrails so people know what is appropriate, what requires review, and where AI should not be used. Another key responsibility is enabling learning. If leaders want adoption, they must give teams permission and time to experiment responsibly. At the same time, they need to keep that experimentation aligned with business needs. In other words, leaders do not just approve AI, they help teams use it in a way that is practical, safe, and tied to outcomes. AI literacy means helping people understand what AI is good at, what it is bad at, and how to use it appropriately in their work. Without that foundation, adoption becomes uneven and confusion spreads quickly. Building literacy does not require turning everyone into a technical expert. It means giving teams a shared vocabulary, a basic understanding of capabilities and limitations, and practical examples tied to their roles. Sales teams need different training than operations teams. Managers need different guidance than individual contributors. The goal is confidence, not complexity. When people understand how AI can help with their actual tasks, adoption becomes more natural. When they only hear abstract messaging about transformation, they often stay stuck. Leaders who invest in AI literacy create stronger, safer, and more consistent adoption across the organization. AI adoption works best when teams are encouraged to experiment, but that experimentation needs structure. If people feel they are not allowed to try AI, adoption slows down. If they are given complete freedom with no guidance, risk increases. The answer is safe experimentation. That means leaders define boundaries while still giving teams room to learn. For example, a team might be encouraged to test AI on internal drafting, meeting summaries, or research support, while avoiding sensitive data or high stakes decisions without approval. Pilot projects are especially useful here. A small, controlled test helps teams learn what works before trying to scale it. It also gives leaders real examples they can discuss and refine. Safe experimentation creates momentum without losing control. Governance sounds formal, but at a practical level, it simply means having clear rules for how AI should be used. Teams need to know what is acceptable, what requires review, what data can be used, and when human approval is mandatory. Guardrails are especially important when AI outputs might influence customers, employees, or sensitive business decisions. Even simple rules can make a big difference. For example, do not paste confidential data into public tools. Verify factual claims before sharing them, and require human review before external use. Good governance should support adoption, not block it. The goal is not to create fear. The goal is to create confidence. When people understand the boundaries, they are more likely to use AI in a responsible and productive way. Clear rules reduce confusion and build trust. Leaders do not need to become experts in AI risk, but they do need to understand the main categories. One major risk is hallucination, where the model produces information that sounds confident but is inaccurate. Another is bias, where outputs may reflect flawed patterns or assumptions. Privacy and security are also critical. Teams need to understand what information should and should not be shared with AI tools, especially when customer, employee, or proprietary data is involved. The important point is that these risks are manageable when they are acknowledged and planned for. Most problems arise when teams treat AI output as automatically trustworthy or use tools without clear guidelines. Responsible AI leadership means using the technology with awareness, review, and common sense. AI can support many parts of work, but it should not remove human accountability. People remain responsible for the final output, the final decision, and the consequences of using that output in the real world. This is one of the most important leadership messages in the entire module. AI can help generate ideas, summarize information, and accelerate execution, but it does not own judgment. Humans do. That is why oversight matters so much. In practice, this means teams should review AI generated content before sending it, validate important facts, and apply judgment in areas where nuance and context matter. It also means leaders should be clear that AI is a support system, not a substitute for responsibility. When oversight is strong, AI becomes useful. When oversight disappears, risk grows quickly. Leaders need a practical way to measure whether AI is actually helping. The easiest mistake is to focus only on excitement instead of outcomes. Real value should be visible in the work. Some of the most useful measures are simple: time saved, faster workflow completion, improved consistency, reduced manual effort, and higher team adoption. In some cases, quality improvements also matter, such as clearer communication or better prepared meetings. Not every benefit will show up immediately as revenue. Many early gains appear in productivity, speed, and standardization. That is still meaningful ROI. Leaders should track results that connect directly to team performance rather than waiting for dramatic transformation metrics. Measure what changes in practice. If AI is reducing friction in important work, that is progress worth building on. AI adoption is not just about tools, it is also about change management. People need to understand why the change matters, how it affects their work, and what support they will receive as they learn. Some employees will be excited, others will be skeptical or anxious. Good leaders address both reactions. They explain the purpose of adoption, provide training, and reinforce that AI is there to support better work, not simply create pressure or uncertainty. Communication matters a lot here. So does reinforcement. Teams are more likely to adopt AI when expectations are clear, examples are practical, and success stories are shared internally. Leaders should also make room for questions and concerns instead of assuming adoption will happen automatically. Change becomes sustainable when people feel guided, not pushed. A practical AI rollout plan does not need to be complicated. In fact, simpler is often better. A useful 5 step plan starts by identifying one real team problem. Next, choose one high value use case where AI could help address it. Then, run a pilot. Keep the scope focused so the team can learn without getting overwhelmed. After that, measure the results. Look at time saved, output quality, ease of use, and adoption. Finally, expand carefully by building on what worked and refining what did not. This approach prevents the common mistake of trying to roll out AI everywhere at once. Leaders do not need a massive transformation plan on day one. They need one practical success that creates evidence, confidence, and momentum. That is how responsible adoption begins. Great AI leaders are usually not the loudest or most technical people in the room. What makes them effective is that they stay focused on practical outcomes. They look for real use cases instead of chasing hype. They encourage learning, but they also set boundaries. They understand that adoption requires both experimentation and structure. They help teams build confidence through useful examples, and they measure whether AI is actually improving the work. When something works, they scale it thoughtfully. When something creates noise without value, they move on. Most importantly, strong AI leaders treat this as an ongoing capability, not a one time initiative. They build habits, not just pilots. They help teams think clearly about where AI belongs and how it should be used. That is what leadership looks like in this space. Congratulations! You've now completed Module 6 of the AI Professional Certification Series, AI Certified Leader. This session is important because it expands the role AI plays in your thinking. Earlier modules focused on using AI yourself. This one focused on helping others use it well. That is a different responsibility, and it requires a different mindset. An AI leader is not someone who simply likes new technology. An AI leader understands where AI creates value, where it should be used carefully, and how to guide a team through adoption in a practical way. They prioritize useful work, create guardrails, support learning, and scale what actually helps. That is the core takeaway from this module. AI leadership is about turning isolated experimentation into responsible, repeatable business value. And that is how organizations move forward.